Just have mic test. Yeah, just to see if the audio is okay or not.
It's like, oh, well, I want to do that. I can do that too.
We're not letting anybody in. That caused all that disturbance last night. Nice to see you. Hey, I like you. You dress nicer than the other day. Yeah. I get it, but I got what you roll.
I'm for service and anybody needs anything.
You had timer?
I didn't go on.
I was really pleased when you see me because my son was talking about this and he makes me I said no. I'm just kidding. Yeah, she can't see that. Oh, she has one. She has one.
They have little ones.
Yeah, they have little.
I didn't think where's okay? Look at you, yeah.
Like, if people have I'll take photos. Okay, Holly. You can say you should show it all the things. One, two, three, four. There we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, and please have your attention, please. Good morning. We are going to get started in a few moments. So for those of you who haven't picked up your coffee or your coffee, there are some for that. Please do so. Please have your seat and we are going to get started. I am going to listen to如果大家需要佢哋寫餐啊，或者去啲咖啡嘅時候咧，請大家盡快去攞，我哋馬上就會開始啦。第一次就係。All right, ladies and gentlemen, please have your seats. We are going to get started. Please have your seats. If I get any volunteers, please usher the crowd to be seated. That would be fantastic. We are going to get started. 大家好，我哋馬上就會開始嘅，希望大家可以盡快就位。咁我哋就會喺2分鐘後馬上開始。Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Franco. I'm very pleased to welcome each and every one of you to the 2022 Chinatown Mayoral Candidate Town Hall. We're grateful and honored today to host this event on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. We're also pleased to be joined with so many neighboring communities in Squamish today's event. You can see their names on the screen. We're of course very honored today to have welcomed Ms. Frances Goulart as our moderator today. Frances has covered urban issues and Vancouver city politics since 1994. First with the Vancouver Sun, and the last 14 years with the Vancouver Mayoral. She's an adjunct professor at UBC School of Journalism, Writing, and Media. And she has written for a wide range of publications throughout her career. These include well-known journals such as the Vancouver Magazine, BC Business, Canadian Business, South China Morning Post, the Georgia Strait, and the Guardian. She has also appeared in Voice on the radio, Radio Canada, CBC Radio, and CKNW. Many of you will have read her stories over the years, covering a broad range of issues. Drug policies, bike lanes, billion-dollar development projects, homelessness, garbage debates, and more. Most importantly for today, Frances writes often about China. She lives close by to this neighborhood and visits frequently. She knows the issues well. We're pleased to have such a well-informed and respected moderator to be part of the discussion today. 大家好，我嘅名係 Franco， 咁非常之榮幸咧可以擔任2022年溫哥華華國市長競選義務嘅司儀以及翻譯。我哋今日咧亦都係首先非常之感謝咧各位聯合舉辦嘅單位啦，以及贊助商嘅，咁大家可以喺後邊咧見到佢哋嘅名字。我哋今日亦都係非常之榮幸咧，可以邀請到Frances Goulart女士咧，亦都係作為我哋研討會嘅主持人。咁 Goulart 女士咧。自1994年咧，一直咧亦都係已經報導緊溫哥華城市一啲政治嘅活動啦。首先喺溫哥華太陽日報咧，佢亦都係過去14年咧喺環球日報嘅。佢係 UBC 新聞寫作同媒體學院嘅兼職教授。佢嘅豐富嘅職業生涯咧，使到佢咧喺各方面嘅新聞媒體咧，亦都係撰寫同出版不同嘅文章。咁呢啲媒體咧包括溫哥華雜誌啦、BC 商業啦、加拿大商業啦。南華日報咧等等嘅知名期刊嘅，佢亦都係出現過喺我哋嘅廣播電台，包括 CBC 同埋 CKNW 擔任過廣播嘅主持。咁多年嚟咧，我哋大家咧都有閱讀過佢嘅故事啦、同新聞，亦都係涵蓋廣泛嘅不同嘅政治一啲問題，包括貨品政策、自行車道以及數十億嘅發展項目、無家可歸者等等嘅辯論嘅一啲嘅話題。最重要咧，Goulart女士咧係熱衷於唐人街嘅事情，佢亦都係喺呢個社區附近咧係住宿嘅。咁我哋非常之榮幸咧，係可以邀請到Frances Goulart女士咧作為我哋嘅研討會嘅主持人。 咁今日咧，我哋亦都係會帶現場嘅翻譯嘅。咁如果需要大家係英文字廣東話嘅翻譯嘅人士咧，可以舉一舉手。咁我哋嘅義工咧係會嚟送耳機俾大家啦。咁我哋會做現場嘅翻譯嘅。咁需要嘅時候可以舉手，或者喺後邊咧去攞呢個耳機。So without further ado, I would like to welcome Ms. Frances Gula to begin today's discussion, and also welcome, of course, all the candidates to speak. Thank you.
Great. So wonderful to see so many of you out on a Saturday morning. I know it's not a usual time, you actually rearranged the day for me, so I appreciate that. And I just wanted to say before anything else, how honored I was to have the Chinatown group ask me to moderate this. It was felt like a real compliment to me, and this neighborhood is very important to me. Coming to Chinatown regularly since I was a university student in the 70s, and it's the only place I did Christmas shopping because it's the only thing I could afford and stuff down here. And I live very close by. I'm down 2 or 3 times a week, eating at restaurants, running into Carol Lee at Chinatown Barbecue, buying things for Chinese New Year, and so on. So it really means a lot to me to be able to do this moderating in particular, where I hope we will get to focus on, some important key questions for Chinatown. So I am just going to go over the format really briefly, partly for you, partly also for the candidates who, we're just doing things at the last minute. So there are going to be 4 to 5 main questions, depending on how quickly we get through things. The format is that each candidate will have an initial 2 minutes to answer each question. And then we'll have 10 minutes where I ask follow-up questions, with everything to all of the unusual, charming, but you didn't really answer kind of way. So 10 minutes of that, and then move on to the next question. We are leaving some room at the end for audience questions. And there will be pens and paper available being passed around so that you can write your question down. It's not a thing of coming up to the mic and collect your questions and then you have to select from among them which audience questions you'll ask. I just want to remind people that this is a panel that is about Chinatown. It's not about every issue in the city. And there are a number of mayoral debates coming up in the next couple of weeks where if you have another issue, you can bring that up. So Glacier Media Business in Vancouver is having something at the Terminal City Club on Monday at 6 o'clock. There's a BIA mayoral forum on September 28th. Another one, CIJA, I'm not quite sure what that is, September 29th. There's an AM 1320 debate, Cantonese language on October 5th. And a big debate hosted by my reporter pal who's in the audience here somewhere, Jen St. Janice and Omir on October the 6th. So there's lots of opportunities for many different issues to be canvassed. This session is about Chinatown. So bear that in mind when you are asking your questions. And what else do I need to remind you of? Just the general things. We're asking people to be respectful. That's the audience, that's the candidates with each other. We're hoping to keep your big liar, comments to a minimum here. And that's about it. So I think that those are the general rules. Remind me, everyone, organize. So I'm going to briefly introduce the candidates. I can't cover all of their extensive bios. Obviously, they've been doing a lot with their lives. And I'm going to go in alphabetical order, which isn't necessarily how they will answer the questions, but just for the intros. So Fred Harding, who is the mayoral candidate for the Nonpartisan Association, who's on the far right over there. or to my right, was born in Manchester as a detective with the National or Metropolitan Police Service in London from 1984 to 1997. Moved with his family after to Vancouver to raise children. Worked with the West Vancouver Police Department, and after retiring from there, became the CEO of a global consulting company that connects businesses in North America and Asia. He was the mayoral candidate last time with Vancouver First. He's now the mayoral candidate for the NPA. Second, Colleen Margaret, who I have known for many years. And he is a descendant of a long-time family in Vancouver. Her grandfather moved here. I found him in the telephone directory in, I think, 1911. Sorry, Colleen. And informed me beforehand I did this kind of research, but I think that was my great-grandfather. Oh, was it? Oh, okay. Okay. And, her father was a city councilor in the 1970s. Colleen was a TV and film producer in the 90s and, achieved a lot of success in that area. She's since founded 3 companies, including the one that I'm most familiar with called Place Speak, that is a platform for engaging citizens to talk about city issues. She was first elected to council in the last election in 2018. And I think the initiative that she spearheaded that people remember the best, that was different, was the creation of an Auditor General office in Vancouver to take a look at how the city spends its money. They have yet to issue their first report. I think we're all waiting to see what they come up with. Next is Mark Marison. Again, someone I've known for a long time who has been very involved in federal and provincial politics, working as an organizer for different federal candidates, and has a kind of a private consulting business, I think we call it, as an advisor to political business and labor leaders, and working with a public policy firm. He knows municipal politics better than some people might think. Got involved with Vision Lab was being created in 2005. That was after being involved with Christy Clark's unsuccessful run to become the mayoral candidate for the NPA. He got involved with the NPA again in 2007 and was really instrumental in getting a councillor elected, Hector Bremner. And he did have a party, was very instrumental in creating a party that ran in the last election with Hector Bremner as the mayoral candidate, I believe. And here he is running as a mayoral candidate with another party he's created called Progress Vancouver. And then Ken Sim is someone I only got to know in 2018 when he first was chosen as the nonpartisan candidate. He came within 900 votes of becoming the mayor, but did not. He is a successful businessman who founded Nurse Next Door and Rosemary Rock Salt. But he tells me, and I remembered this story sort of, I got him to remind me of it, but he started his entrepreneurial career by taking the bus from Champlain Heights to 16th and Dunbar, buying comic books for 10 cents, then going to the comic book store on 4th Avenue and reselling it for 85 cents. So if you think that's a good strategy for the city, he's your guy. Since 2018, he has spent the previous 4 years building up a new party called ABC. We've talked a few times over those 4 years, and I know he's been very busy doing that. And finally, our current mayor, Kennedy Stewart, who, as far as I know, is the only renter of this group of 5. I first met him 20 years ago when he was a grad student working on issues of like voter turnout, voter engagement in civic elections. He went on after that to go on to the London School of Economics and become a political science prof at SFU. He's not a Vancouverite like Ken and Colleen, but he came here in 1989, as many young people do, from Nova Scotia, where his family had had a tough time, gone bankrupt, lost the house and everything. There's a fantastic picture of him playing guitar in a rock and roll band in Vancouver from those early years. He went into real politics, not just lecturing about politics. In 2011, was elected as an MP for Burnaby, and then decided to run for mayor in 2018, and obviously was successful. So those are the 5 candidates here. Please email me afterwards about all the mistakes I made. Don't bring them up right now. So, okay, we're already 10 minutes behind schedule. That's excellent. So we're going to start with the first question here, and I'll just remind you, so you each get 2 minutes to answer this, and I'm going to go in this order. Kennedy Stewart, Ken Sim, Colleen Carter, Fred Harvey, Mark Marison. 2 minutes, and then we'll have 10 minutes, up to 10 minutes, doesn't have to be 10 minutes, where I ask follow-up questions, and you can interject. You can act like my family, where no one's ever finished a sentence. And you can interject with, your own observations, your own follow-up questions that I'm not asking. We do ask that it not turn into like kind of personal fights, which everyone's promised to do. So our first question is about public safety. And candidates have had these questions in advance. So, and then we worked on these questions together with the organizers. So these aren't my random questions, just in case you need to know. So, violence and property crime on the streets of the downtown east side and its surrounding neighborhoods are having a huge impact on the small businesses in Chinatown and a sense of safe residential streets that have made us who we are. How do you propose to make our streets safe again in your first months in office? So we'll start with the mayor.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining today. I'm really looking forward to our discussion. First, I want to acknowledge we're on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, and thank them for their generosity to all of us.
Mike, come on.
Who's that?
Yes. Can you start that again?
Okay, thanks. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming here today. Looking forward to this discussion. I do want to acknowledge we're on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, and thank them for their generosity as we move toward becoming a true city of reconciliation. The bottom line, and I think it's a principle we all agree, is that everybody needs to feel safe in Vancouver. And I fully acknowledge that many people do feel safe, but many people don't. And we have to, and I have, over my 4 years as mayor, done everything I can within my authority to try to help those people who aren't feeling safe feel safe again. This has come through many discussions with people, businesses, residences, police board meetings, police officers, those first responders, care workers. Everybody knows, and public health officials will tell you that COVID has had a devastating impact on all cities, but Vancouver is no exception. And the neighborhoods that have been hardest hit are those neighborhoods surrounding the downtown side, including Chinatown, Strathmore, and Gastown, and of course the downtown side itself. This COVID impacts have had a huge stressor with, for example, 7,000 single occupancy hotels that are in this area. Physical distancing, forcing guests immediately up to the street in the midst of the pandemic. Mental health crisis and addiction crises escalating, and this neighborhood of Chinatown has had its impact. So I definitely acknowledge that. There are two ways. There are two things that we have to address here. The first is just overt criminality. criminals that are assaulting people, that are breaking into businesses, that are doing this on a regular basis, either on their own or in an organized fashion, have to be dealt with.
So, sorry, you are out of time. They didn't start on the solutions until 15 seconds before the deadline. So we'll have to get back to that because I really have to stick to the time here. Okay, Ken, Sam.
Thank you everyone for everyone for showing up here today on Saturday, and I do want to acknowledge that we are hosting today's debate on the unceded territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam First Nations, and I want to thank them for their generosity. Look, we're in a crisis. We have to act now. As Mayor of Vancouver, with an ABC majority on council, we are going to ask on day one for the Vancouver Police Department to hire 100 additional officers and 100 additional mental health nurses, so we can provide empathetic and effective resources to the people who need it and to the community. Now, there is a very clear choice in this election on this issue. Everyone has a lot of ideas, and I think we should celebrate the fact that everyone has ideas. But we've made a clear distinction that we are going to take this incredibly seriously. There are a 500% increase in Asian and Asian hate crimes, 36% increase in assaults. There's 4 random assaults on people every single day in the city. So we're taking this seriously. I want you to compare our plan of 100 police officers and 100 mental health workers to 25 commissioners that has been proposed by the mayor, or Councillor Hardwick, who's proposing to hire a commissioner and study the issue more. So I will let the residents of Vancouver decide which plan is taking this seriously. The second thing we're going to do when I'm Mayor of Vancouver is we are going to put an office in Chinatown, because I truly believe if you want to solve something, you need to be on the ground here. You can't solve it by being in an ivory tower at 12 New Canopy. We need to be engaged with the residents, the business owners, people in the community, and the groups that are trying to solve the issues, to provide support, to understand what's going on, and see what's working and doing more of it, and whatever's not working, readjust. And so that's our plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. First time this is working,
No.
Press the button.
There should be a button on it.
Appears to be on. Test.
I'm going to pick one.
But I saw it, you started for time, yeah.
Here's a.
Yeah, that was working. Okay, Peter's passing you one, Colleen. I think that's working now.
May as well.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. You know, I was thinking the first movie that I shot in Chinatown was 1984. It was called Year of the Dragon. And we shot outside the Hobo Chop Suey restaurant not far from here. And we were doubling the city of Vancouver for New York City. And we had to bring in garbage and set decorating to dress it, to look like New York. That was 1984. How much things have changed. Does anybody feel safer than they did 4 years ago when we took office? Anybody? No. I guess not. So what are we going to do? Well, I think the most important thing out of the gate is that we need police boots on the ground. We need police officers walking in Chinatown, connecting in person with business owners, seniors, and residents. Driving by ain't gonna do it. We really need people that are physically here on the streets. And we need to use people with police experience to add security. We do not support the Vancouver area network of drug users being used as so-called security. If we're spending taxpayer dollars, let's hire retired cops, not drug users. What do you think? So we've seen innocent victims, including refugees, attacked, example, Henry Moore. And how is it that we spent hundreds of millions of dollars and things have gotten even worse. Do you shake your head over this or what? So team proposes to hire a downtown east side commissioner to take charge of all spending in the downtown east side, including Chinatown, to conduct an audit and spend less money for more results. What do you think? One thing's for sure, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome is the definition of insanity. And we cannot have that. We need to have change. We need to take this neighborhood seriously. And team is a voice for all neighborhoods. Thank you.
对不起，我的中文非常不好，我会是中文，我会是普通话，但他们认为我英语。So I used to be a police officer. I was a police officer for over 30 years. And one of the biggest issues that we're facing here is a lack of leadership. The issues that we're seeing on the downtown side, the issues that we're seeing in Chinatown when I walk around, are entirely solvable. We can resolve this. So about 30 years ago, or 25 years ago, I was called into the East End of London, where they asked me to come and tackle the state that was riddled with racing crime, drug dealing, and terrible criminal issues. And I arrested a lot of people and got that community safe. It's entirely doable. What we're looking for here is resources. We need strong leadership. We need a leader that understands how to tackle these issues. We need somebody that knows how to target individual criminals and how to target individual criminal groups and take them off the streets. That's what I know how to do. That's what I did for over 30 years. And that's the depth of our bench. When you look at Arthur Jeremian, who's sitting in the back there, this is what she's done for the Vancouver Police Department for many years. The NPA will do this for you. We will resolve this issue. I told you the day that it's too complex, it will take years, and it's probably impossible. That's about the lack of leadership. That's about not understanding how to tackle the issues that you're facing, that this area is facing. We can do it. When you have leadership that says you can do, we will do. We have about 2,000 people who are homeless on the streets of the downtown east side. We can triage these people out there. I hope in the 10-minute section that I can explain the plan that we have where we move them out. And I'm very pleased that my plan to bring on retired police officers is reaching everybody. It's really important.
Well, in the next coming years, we have a choice as a city. We could be a welcoming, thriving, and growing city, or we could be an unwelcoming, unthriving, and dying city. And the growing city is one of the strong middle class, and it's a safer city. A city that is dying the way it is today, the way that we're losing people, we lost 7,000 people from our city last year, that is an unsafe city. I love Chinatown. It's a national treasure. It was the first place I came to when I came in 1989 to Vancouver. I came to Chinatown to have barbecue pork buns. They were awesome. But Chinatown has seen better days. We've seen an increase in hate crime. We've seen an increase in hate attacks. We've seen graffiti. We've seen just lots of problems and just an emptiness in Chinatown. So the question asked us about immediate things that we could do. One is to get better lighting in Chinatown. Another one is to clean the actual streets. If we can get the streets clean, that can make people feel more welcome here. But in the long run, also we have to be open to being called. They've been told that this is a bit not necessarily going to work in the downtown east side. I have to speak to the police about this, but I think we have to be open to that being called walking the streets of Chinatown. But also in the longer term, and what we have to start immediately as mayor is to create a new Vancouver agreement. City Hall can't deal with these issues alone. In fact, we don't have the funds to deal with this alone. We need a unified strategy and funding model. We're going to do Vancouver agreement. It was ended in 2010. Kennedy Stewart said he was going to bring it back. He didn't. We need to get everybody working together to get this to happen, and that's what I'll do. Thank you.
Now we're doing a 10-minute, okay. So, I'm going to let the mayor have 1 minute. No, less than that. 30 seconds to say what you were actually going to do, because we never got to that.
Right, so for the first criminals, we need to fully fund the DPD and make sure that they have all the resources, and that's what we've done over the last 4 years. Fully funded the DPD. I've seen that the latest budget just got insurance for yesterday, Thursday, and that budget looks completely manageable for us. However, everyone agrees we're not going to rest our way at it. Everyone agrees except my opponents here, who thinks we should be throwing people who are suffering mental health and addiction challenges or on the streets into jail, and that simply isn't going to work. That's why I've secured over $1 billion for social housing in the city, opening 1,600 units last year.
We're engaging 30 seconds. Not to be mean here. So here are my follow-up questions. You all know that you can't tell the Vancouver police what to do. You don't have the right. And the police currently get $320 million a year. They are by far the biggest part of the budget. So for those who are advocating more police, why do you think that's going to make a difference? And just weigh in, just cut it and talk over each other.
So I'll stop there. I know things are. And I think it's disrespectful to everybody to talk over each other, and we talked about this, so I think I give me 30 seconds, 45 seconds. First of all, what you hear from the mayor, and I'm not going to attack it here, it's about soft on crime. We're sick of crime, but people are afraid and they're sick of not being able to go out at night. We need leadership on these issues. Not saying that we shouldn't arrest people. We arrest violent people. We have to arrest the people who are making the streets unsafe. There's nothing wrong with that. We are a nation of laws. Yes, there are people who are suffering and we have to help them. That's entirely different from people who are committing crime. I grew up in poverty, in abject poverty. 1 in 10 children with a single parent in social housing. We didn't resort to crime. So that's the point.
Are you suggesting that Vancouver police are not arresting people because the mayor is telling them not to?
I'm not suggesting anything to court at the time. What I'm saying is, I'm talking about arresting people. When I was brought into a state in East London to deal with race-hate crime and rampant drug addiction and drug issues, I arrested a lot of people. And I got a lot of social workers.
Not doing their job right now?
No, so I'm saying that we can do better. I'm saying that if we have leadership in the city, we've got a lack of leadership. We need inspiring leadership. We need somebody that people will follow through fire. We need somebody that's going to take the issues that the people of Vancouver are facing, and the people in Chinatown are facing, take it seriously, and not talk about we can't do this.
Okay, I'm gonna get some other people a chance.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Francis. We will never tell Vancouver Police Department what to do. These are operational issues that you trust your leadership with. We asked the question and we did our research, and the Vancouver Police Department said that they support this, just like all 23 mayors of Metro that signed the letter, including Mr. Stewart, to the province asking for resources like this. Now, Car 87, when the mayor refers to, well, we're just going to arrest people, no, the whole purpose of Car 87 is putting a plainclothes police officer with a mental health nurse to provide empathetic care and resources. They have more tools in their toolbox, so individuals don't get thrown into the criminal justice system where they do not belong. It's more effective. And the last comment I'll make is, I actually think it's quite disingenuous that the mayor said that he's fully funded the plan. He cut the budget by 5.7 and Mike Farnsworth.
No, I didn't cut it. Just want to be clear, and we're gonna stick to facts here.
Okay.
He didn't
So
cut it. He didn't
maybe-
give it much.
So, I'll explain with the budget, how it was presented. 57 to 61 people short in the PPE because of those actions. And, Mr. Farnsworth had to override the decision of City Hall. Now, where we get numbers to answer your question, the service levels of the EPD have not been increased since 2010, but the city has grown by 13%. That's a shortfall. And it's not the only reason why we're seeing all the challenges on the street, but it's a big reason why. And we have to make choices. If we are going to take public security, safety seriously, These are the choices we have to make.
Okay, I'm gonna stop. How hiring more police officers on top of the 1,200 we already have is going to make all of a sudden a big difference, but I'm going to
It's
let.
because it's a given. Because it's a given. Both the 100 police officers and the 100 nurses are a given. There's a huge nursing shortage throughout North America and British Columbia. I have no idea where Kinson's going to find these nurses, and he didn't speak to the police about the number that they need. So, and what Kinson's doing is talking about 100 police officers and 100 nurses, is he's doing the job for the provincial government, he's doing the job for the police. And the fact is that what that means is that means either cuts or higher property taxes. And what he has already said is that he would be open to cutting flood protection and open to cutting upgrades to 911 services. So these are very serious matters. Thank you.
Okay, Colleen, you haven't had a chance to respond here.
Yeah, for the record, I voted against the council decision to reduce the police budget by $5.7 million. I know you can't do that, and Mr. Mayor, you voted for it. I was there. So, the second, the population has continued to grow at 1% per annum compounding basis, and so that, really going back to 2009 when the report was done by.
Can I just remind you that the question from me was, how will hiring more police change things, given how much money they get already?
Is my time still running?
Yeah. Go ahead. No,
So the answer to the question, because sometimes you have to frame question, answers and questions, is that the BPD have not received commensurate increase in the number of police officers. I agree that the 100,000, or the 100 number was pulled up by half. More accurately, it's about 60, and probably with another 20 in terms of support. And those pieces do need to be in place so that we can be properly dealing with the growth. But what has grown disproportionate with population has been the homeless and the crime level in Chinatown and the downtown side. And so it's absolutely incumbent on us as a city council, as the one that makes the decisions about headcount and about budget, to ensure that we have sufficient support for the police, sufficient boots on the street, and sufficient supports in technology and communications and other areas. So that is the answer. Thank you.
So your proposal is the 25 count kind of roving counselors who would, sort of just be going around tackling problems on the street, and improved 311 system where people could call in. 25 counselors are roaming the streets for the kinds of problems that we're seeing in Vancouver in multiple neighborhoods. How is that going to do anything?
Yeah, thanks. So,
I bet.
right. So, look, the police do a good job here in the city, right? The police board asks for funding every year. We fully fund what they ask for. The police have been running Priority 7 since 1978. They make requests for funding if they want additional people in Priority 7. So I leave that to Adam Palmer, who makes the decisions about police operations, and I think they do a very good job under the current circumstances. But to your point, what the police and health officials are identifying is this gap with connecting people with provincial services, and that's exactly what this new 311 number will help do. If you're a business and you find someone sleeping in front of your business, you'll call 311 on this new service, and the team will come and connect them to provincial services. If there's any weapons or violence, then 911 is called. So this works in all kinds of cities around the U.S. UG Oregon does it with their Boots program. It is a compassionate response, because most of these issues are not criminal. They're folks who are suffering, but the criminal issues have to be dealt with by fully funded BPD. That's what I've done for 4 years and will continue to do. And I'm very grateful to Chief Adam Palmer for stepping up and supporting us on decriminalizing drugs and safe supply. If he had not supported those measures, they would not now be putting in place by the commission.
But why only 25? That just seems like ridiculous. That's like the staffing of a medium-sized restaurant.
No, isn't it? The proposal that we put out first is 25 initially to get it up and need presents itself, that you staff it up more. We already have enough staff in the city to do most of this work, although we need additional training as the 311 operators will do.
Okay.
So we can do this within 6 months, get it up and rolling, so we'll be able to call 311 and get the help we need for non-violent incidents. While 911, you get help.
Thank you. We're at 10 minutes. I'm sorry, Fred, I realize you have another question, but we're going on to homelessness, and you may have things that sort of connect with that as well. Okay, I think we're doing really well, aren't we? You want to wrap it up? Okay, so next, question 2. Oh, and by the way, so sorry, just one thing. So there's a person at the front of each side aisle with papers for questions. So if you, you just have to raise your hand if you have a question, and they'll pass you a piece of paper, and then the organizing committee will select from the questions for me to ask at the end. Okay, so all the people around the side there who want paper and pen. Okay, next round. Homelessness is growing in Vancouver despite the creation of a record number of social housing units, and I have covered this issue in Vancouver for 24 years. It is a record number. It's unbelievable how much is being built, and it's not keeping up. And it doesn't seem to be meeting all the levels of need out there. So the question is, how would you immediately reduce street and parking counts in a way that improves the lives of the homeless, and how would you prevent future encampments? And I'm going to change the order of who answers. I'm going to move down one person each time. So I'm going to start with Vincent.
Thank you for the question. And so the reality is, if people are expecting this to happen on October the 17th or 18th, it's going to take a bit of time. It's multifaceted. There are about 6 or 7 different things that we can do, but the 2 things I like to highlight is, one, there are record amounts of housing out there, and we need more, but what we focus on, what the cities are focused on, is the wrong types of units. They focus on quality, or quantity, not quality. A lot of these units, they're unlivable. They're rodent infested. At the height of summer, they can be over 45 degrees inside of windows that open. They're not livable. Like, how bad do these units have to be where people would rather live in a tent on the street on East Hastings than in these units? So we're going to shift the strategy towards quality units, so people actually can live and will live in these units, as we look to the provincial and federal government for more support when it comes to wraparound services and more permanent types of housing. There are some things that the city can do as well. We have a lot of assets that are being underutilized that we can strategically look at. We have land. We can ask the government or the provincial or federal governments to help us with the building of tiny homes that cost a fraction of what it would be to buy hotel rooms that aren't suited for this type of housing. And we can have them up and running fairly quickly. And if we do these 2, plus I'm sure everyone up here, you have a lot of great ideas as well. If we look at this issue together, as opposed to fighting each other on it, we can provide more housing to the people that need it faster and make a dent on this challenge.
Oh, me? Yeah. Sorry.
No worries. Well, we can't solve a problem that's been over a decade in the making, especially with the addition of fentanyl. We can start to immediately move in the right direction while we look at what other jurisdictions have done successfully. But we're not going to just flip a switch. But there have been instances in other places where you have a refugee crisis. And what you do is you look at gathering people. I mean, we have property, even the PNE, for example. There's a lot of land there where we can then get people organized and then triage them is the word that we use often to figure out different people have different requirements. How do they become homeless? Were they couch surfing, lost their job and just need to get back on their feet? Are they mothers with children that are victims of domestic abuse? Is it mental health? Is it drug addiction? There's a whole range of different concerns, and there's no one size fits all model. I like to say the homeless are not homogeneous, so we have to be able to to look at moving people into different situations in a distributed form. But even as we do that, folks, what's to say there isn't going to be another big lineup behind them, right? Because just as we move people off the street, we know that there's going to be a steady stream coming to Vancouver. The weather's better. I'd rather be homeless in Vancouver than Winnipeg or Edmonton. It's pretty understandable. But if the attitude that is spread out there is that Vancouver is a destination, come on down. We'll give you a free place to live, free drugs. You know, why would you not come to Vancouver? I saw you in the audience somewhere. There's an old Yiddish saying that says the fish rots from the head. And what I'm getting at here is if the tone that comes from the top, which is the mayor, is come on down, Vancouver is a destination for homelessness, then we're never going to solve this problem. So we have to stand up and say we are going to have to find housing for people that is appropriate to their needs. Thank you.
Okay. This issue is entirely solvable. It's going to be about leadership, and we are a nation of laws, and we're going to resolve this. I'm going to give you an absolute faithful promise. I am the man, the 10 encampments on Hastings will be gone by Christmas. They will be gone by Christmas. We are a nation of laws. You can't actually just set up a tent. There are laws that go against it. I can quote them. What we need to do is actually look at what's going on with the root cause of what's bringing the people here. Until we actually resolve the root causes of what's bringing people down here, we'll never end this. As Colleen says, it's right, they'll keep coming, they'll keep coming. We don't have any treatment in our plans. We have harm reduction and safe supply. We have to tie this to treatment. When you look around Europe where people are studying these cases, Portugal, for instance, is all tied to treatment. That's what resolves the issue. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again before the election campaign is over, I'll say it 8 times. If it was your child on the street, and all we had to offer them was harm reduction and slum housing, do you think that's good enough? Because I don't think anybody in this room does. We have to tie it to treatment. You can't set up. You can't. My turn. My turn. My turn. Play it back my time.
Sorry.
Play it back my time.
We're trying to be respectful. Please do not interrupt. You will have a chance to ask questions and talk to the candidates afterwards. We really cannot descend into a brawl here, no matter how passionate you feel.
I'm really open to discussing these. This is why we're all here, because we want to have a conversation. We really do. But now I'm ready for there and I want to get my point across. And I really want to talk to you about it. I do. So, look, we have 25% of the population on the homeless is indigenous. There are actual, you might just have an extra few seconds. There is case law that allows us to actually house and treat and put the indigenous homeless people into places where they're safe. The same as with veterans who fought in a foreign war. 10% of the people on our downtown east side homeless are veterans who fought in a foreign war. The government is responsible, much like everybody in this room is responsible for paying your taxes. You may not want to do it, but you have to do it. The government are responsible for those people, and we'll make sure that the government helps their end of the bargain.
Okay.
Thank you. One of the first things I did when I was doing my homework to decide whether I was running for mayor was spend half a day at the Strathcona camp before it was decamp, and I listened to their stories. And I did a full tour of the camp and checked out what was happening there. And it was the biggest eye-opener I had as a candidate in this entire campaign. What I learned was people felt safer and cleaner in their tents than they did in their SROs. And I went and visited about 15 of them. And some of our SROs are just simply unfit for human habitation. This is because of the lack of investment. We're about a generation in the kind of public housing that we need in our country. And luckily, some things have been happening, but it's still not enough. And putting people in hotels like the Howard Johnson, it's not working. We need to be able to get right kind of housing for folks. But the question was what we do immediately to address this. And what I would do immediately is I would identify some city-owned land to an intentional encampment where there be washrooms, showers, and security, where people that are in the camps can feel safe, and that people can also feel safe about the camp. And these camps should be temporary until people can find housing. But we need to take action now, otherwise we're gonna have tents on Hastings Street for a long time to come. What we need to do is we also need to hold other cities accountable for not taking care of their people. When other cities in this country don't build the social housing, when they don't invest in their communities, the federal and provincial governments should deny them funding, and that funding should come to Vancouver. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm quite stressed with what I'm hearing here. When you talk to folks that are living along Hastings Street, like I do, they're residential school survivors of genocide. They are injured workers. They are people that are fleeing abuse. Like, these are our neighbors. These are not refugees who are in some kind of camp. These are folks that need deep care, and they're victims. We have organized crime descending on these folks, and it's so unsafe for them and women. You know, women especially. So what I've done, inherited Oppenheimer and Strathmore. I worked with senior levels of government and secured over $1 billion in housing. And that's right, good housing. If you've been in a modular housing home, you'll know it's a home. It's got a shower and a kitchen and a bathroom and it's safe, it's got staff. If you go into renovated hotels, they don't start out great, but they get there. And that is the only way forward. Last year alone, we opened and filled 1,600 units of high quality social housing, much of it with complex care. That is the only way forward here. And it's acknowledged by public health officials and the police. And so that's what I've been working on. The people that from Oppenheimer, they're housed. The people from Strathmore, they are housed. The folks on Hastings Street, these are new folks who have fallen in hard times during COVID-19 and the trauma that is associated with the biggest public emergency in our city's history. So this kind of so distressing. It is not the way it works.
I didn't tell any of you about organizing a city, and I care about any camp, but I just thought of it. I'm gonna pair you up to ask each other questions. From what I can see is clearly two sides. We have 5 people here, so Mark, I'm gonna let you ask anyone at the end. I'm going to ask Ken, Sam, and Colleen Hardwick to talk to about what they see as the flaw in each other's plans. Or the benefit. The flaws in the other person's approach. You are clearly saying we're being too liberal, homeless people are living here because they think it's a free ride. Ken is saying, we need better kinds of housing that's more tailored to different groups of people. You could.
I still don't know how you get us being unliberal. It's just being realistic. I'm sorry, folks. If you're going to put questions forward with statements like that, I think you're setting yourself up for some pushback.
Sorry, I didn't. You said that you think that Vancouver has too liberal.
Did I use the word liberal?
I think we all understand what you meant, whatever word I use, like equivalent over semantics here. You said there's too much of a open door attitude here. Whatever word you want to use, you think there's too much of an open door attitude. Ken saying whoever arrives, we need to find the kind of housing that is appropriate for them and no kind of trying to make people go away. So those are two interesting, valid positions to address, and I want the two of you to talk to each other about it.
Fair, except for that misrepresentation of what I said. What I did say was that people are coming here in steady stream because it's an attractive location. It's the warmest, nicest place in Canada to come And there is a steady stream of people that are ending up on our streets. What I'm saying is we do need to house them. We need to triage people in appropriate housing and not warehouse them. It's important that we find housing that's appropriate to the different types of people. That's why I said the homeless are not homogeneous. And we do need to house them, I'm not disputing that. But we don't want to say that because there will be a steady stream behind them, we're never ever going to be able to fulfill that. And, but I do agree that we need to find appropriate housing to different kinds of people. And I do agree that we need to go to the surrounding municipalities and ask them to hold their own weight. If you look at the composition of the homeless, there are, people from Vancouver, people from other municipalities in Metro Vancouver, across the province and across the country.
Okay.
So I think the point is that I'm trying to make is that the people will have to be triaged into housing, the ones that are here now. But I'm suggesting that we don't want to, put out a billboard saying, come on down.
Ken, if you respond to that or ask Colleen a question or whatever you want to do here.
Well, maybe I want to talk about the situation. And look, there are a lot of ideas here, and so I don't think there's any one solution that's going to solve it. Because if there was, we wouldn't be talking about this. So I actually agree with the mayor on part of this. I have spent the last 3 decades in the downtown east side meeting with residents, and when you hear the stories and you hear the trauma that people go through, you realize that it could happen to any one of us, and we shouldn't be judging. Like, people need help. I think it's a little different to compare, a refugee camp analogy with what we're dealing with here, because it's a different constituency. Lots of challenges with refugees fleeing, maybe a war-torn country, but it's not the same as people, individuals that are dealing with, mental health issues or trauma. Like, these are different groups. You could have 10,000 different groups in that population. It's not one homogeneous group. And so when it comes to, the mayor mentioned empathetic care, and, we're not, people on this panel aren't empathetic. I would disagree with that. Actually, I've met every single person, and I would say we're all empathetic, including the mayor, on this issue. I just want to point to the facts. Regardless of whatever our position is, you look at Hastings and Maine, and you see the situation, and it's not workable, and what we're doing isn't working. And so it doesn't matter how much funding we get from the provincial or federal governments, and like all these kind of things that the city has done, it still isn't working, and we have to look at the problem differently.
Brad Harding and Kenny Stewart to talk to each other, and I would like it if you would talk to each other, and not just kind of make another speech out to the audience.
Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity, because Mayor Stewart said something a moment ago, which I completely disagree with, of course. I walk around in tailored suits, and I'm married to one of the world's most successful recording artists. That's true. But who's the person in this room who sold their radio so that they could buy some food? I did. Who's the person in this room that sold their guitar so that I could go out and buy some food? I did. Who's the person in this room that grew up in abject poverty and would sometimes go to my friend's house at dinner times so I could get something to eat? I did. And I lived on a slice of bread a day and a cup of tea, and I had a 26-inch waist because I was so thin. Hang on, it's Jermaine's the story. The people on the downtown east side, I have lived in poverty. It doesn't look like it, but I've lived in abject poverty. And I sold things that I could eat. The people on the downtown east side, the homeless, they're not my enemy. I have so much in common with the people down there that you cannot appreciate if you don't know my story. So it's not a lack of compassion. This is now about leadership, and it's about actually saving lives. Taking people off the streets, putting them into a place where they're safe, and they have security, and they have storage, and there's a place for their pets, and there's a place where they can set up something and be safe. is not about being callous. It's not about lack of compassion. It's quite the opposite. It's caring for people. It's making sure that they actually survive through the winter and the rain. That's what I want to say. If we don't stop, if we don't take care of this issue, people will keep coming. We must create off-ramps for them. We can't keep living in this fantasy land of being soft on every issue or being afraid to tackle an issue with decisive leadership because you're afraid of what people will think about you. It's about saving lives.
Served for many, many years, and me, who's chaired the Vancouver Police for 4 years. I have to thank Chief Adam Palmer for teaching me everything I know about policing. It's a fantastic education, and I come to deeply respect what the VPD does. And that's why only funding the VPD to take care of the things that Fred's good at. When he told me the last debate that he busted 12 drug houses in one day, and has a very tough on crime approach, we do need some of that from the VPD for organized crime, absolutely. But on the other side of things, we have to continue doing exactly what we've been doing. I signed a historic memorandum of understanding, a document with the provincial government that now agrees that when we have encampments, they will provide housing for every single person there. Then we start to use the services like the 311 heart service I'm proposing to move these folks into stable housing. That's exactly what we did at Strathmore Park. It just took a while to do it because we have to, clearing that park, getting folks into housing, cost $300 million. Most of it came from the federal and provincial governments. Council was good enough to approve $30 million in emergency funding to do that. But that is the only way to deal with these issues, is the compassionate way. But what I really don't like is this them versus us. These folks are all us. They are our neighbors, they are our family, they are people that are in trouble and are being victimized by crime. And the only way forward is this way, is to provide housing, quality housing here, and making sure that folks get into this housing. When they do, they have complex care, which we also started bringing from the provincial government, which is great. You have a 4 modular housing that is 24/7 psychological care, food, addictions treatment, and what happens is people start to stabilize and get back on with a regular life. That is what is happening on these streets right now. We have secured 80 more units of housing just last week in order to get folks moving into these better parts of your life. But to say you're going to stick folks in refugee camps and treat them like they're not Canadians is complete bull, and I would never do that.
Okay, I know Colleen wants to respond to that, but I'm going to let Mark pick one person to quiz as his part, and then I'm going to go get over our 10 minutes to do that. So if you could not start sending off an hour earlier, Go ahead.
My question is for Ken Sim. You talk about 100 police officers and 100 nurses. And one question is, did you consult the police about the 100 police officers? And about the nurses, like this is the province's responsibility. You claim to be a forensic accountant, but yet your first order of business as mayor is to pay somebody else's bills. And where would you get these nurses? And why wouldn't you get the province to do this?
I want to answer all your questions. Okay, we are in crisis. 36% increase in assaults, 500% increase in anti-shooting hate crimes, and 4 random assaults a day. We have to provide leadership more than ever.
Did you consult the police?
Sorry, this is my question. I give you a chance to speak on it.
But this question is about police. Yeah, not police.
So can I answer your question or? So yes, we actually consulted the police, and yes, they are enthusiastic about it, and yes, we can hire.
Did they tell you 100?
Sorry, can I please? Sorry, like I want to answer the question respectfully. Thank you. So yes, and we can hire them. In fact, during 2010, the VPD hired 200 police officers in that year. So this is already fully baked with the support of the VPD. In fact, what we do is we actually ask questions of all the different communities and ask them what are their solutions. And this is the solution we came up with. With respect to the nurses, Once again, we know we can do this. I spend a lot of time in nursing. That's our company. We actually understand what nurses, like where they're working, why they want to work. And right now, look, we're going through a crisis in our public health system, and we have nurses leaving the hospital. And that's terrible. That's another issue that we have to address. But here's the reality. Sorry, can I answer the question, please? Here's the reality. We have this one opportunity where our nurses, a lot of nurses are deciding what their next move is. And they're either going to leave the industry altogether or we can capture them. And by the way, we've spoken with a lot of nurses. They would jump at this opportunity. The opportunities that they are leaving the hospital is a stressful environment where they're working a lot of shift work and they're under-resourced, but they would leave with the opportunity to do a one-on-one situation in this situation that we presented to them. Will it be hard? Absolutely. But it's doable. And instead of standing up on the stage saying, you know what, as Mayor of Vancouver, I'm going to try to find reasons not to address issues. We are going to be leaders, and we are going to take the challenge by the bull by the horns, and do it.
Okay. Why don't we let you give 20 minutes to say what you think about it?
Wait. Minutes. 20 minutes. No, it's just what Pence is talking about. He's already said that he has to look at some cuts because of this when he starts spending money with the provinces. And he talks about cutting flood protection, and he did it.
Go ahead.
Flood protection.
You gotta knock it off, okay? Go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, there'd be no cuts. Here's the reality.
What were you talking about when you said that?
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine. You can say there's gonna be cuts, he doesn't, you can also do your research.
Can I just make one point?
On the radio. See,
This is
your fault.
this is going to be self-funded. Here's the reality. For every dollar that we invest in services like this, we will save tens, if not hundreds of dollars in reduced crime, reduced windows getting broken in, business on our streets, unclogging the public health system. This is where leadership.
Okay, I think some of those also need to say as well.
Okay, we're now going to move on to the next question, and I'm going to need to hear from the organizers if they want to do a fifth question, because we are running, behind schedule. So, and I'm going to start with Colleen Hardwick for this one, and then Fred, and then Mark, and then Kennedy, and then Pam. Sorry, I'm using everyone's first names very inappropriate, but whatever. Okay, so we're going to talk. This question is about Northeast Fall Street. There's a huge plan to develop Northeast Fall Street that is intimately connected to Chinatown and its economic future. And Chinatown and other communities have been disappointed with this plan. The organizers wanted me to point out that the plan promises to accommodate housing for Chinese seniors, increase Chinatown-oriented park space, improve vehicular access to Chinatown, and restore the character of the Main Street frontages currently occupied by the viaducts. They say this is all contradicted by city plans and initiatives pointing in other incompatible directions. And during the NEFC planning exercise, existing Fall Street residents insisted that the plan fulfill the city's long-standing commitments to the Creekside Park extension, and to see the park designed to allow easy pedestrian movement. The plan has failed to address these practical concerns, they say. So how would your council, if you were in charge, address the failure of the Northeast Fall Street plan to meet the needs of the existing communities? Colleen.
We'll stop the Northeast Fall Street plan immediately. We will properly consult the neighborhood, including Chinatown, and then work to ensure that your voice is heard, because we believe in a voice for all neighborhoods. And Chinatown is not being heard, And we inherited this Northeast Wall Street plan from Vision, which we showed the door back in 2018, and yet here we still are. So what do you think? What do you think? Should we stop the Northeast Wall Street plan and send it back to the drawing board? What do you think? So the team does not agree with the decisions and promises made by past councils that negatively impact Chinatown and other neighborhoods. Things like the Carroll Street access, also affecting the Falls Creek residents. We had the Falls Creek Residents Association meeting recently. Also Hogan's Alley, the downtown east side, encroaching on Chinatown's area as well. If you look at the legacy of what has gone on with the former Expo lands and Concord development, we've already seen a commitment was supposed to be for 7,600 residential units go up to 11,500 units, and there was supposed to be 2.75 acres per 1,000 residents. Now we're going to take down the viaducts, which is like it's the meat under the viaducts that we're looking at, add additional density, make it impossible to move around from a mobility standpoint, get rid of the green space, including the playground and the sports fields for the kids. In what way is that in the best interest of our city? It's in the best interest of some people, but not in Chinatown's and not the city as a whole. Thank you.
So once again, what we see is a lack of leadership. This plan, for those of you who are not aware of the plan and not overly familiar, actually came about in 1990. That's how long people will be waiting for an answer. So that's a lifetime for some people as regarding parts of the issues down there. So what I'm going to do is, it's not an area that I'm overly familiar with. I met people from the Northeast Wall Street this week. It was a great debate. I learned a lot. I need to listen. I need to listen to what the issues are. But certainly bring some leadership and start to resolve them. You can't have another 35 years. That's just, it's the Queen's reign. So it's absolutely absurd. We want to make sure that for the people of this area, we want to create some additional housing at St. Paul's Hospital. That's really important. There is no housing. We need to create some workforce housing there for teachers, nurses, police officers, people who are working regular jobs and not making bankers' salaries. They need housing in Vancouver. We can accommodate that. We can do a version 2.0. Remember that Chinatown, the people that we can create housing there, affordable housing, they will be the customers that will be coming to your stores and restaurants. I still don't know, and I've asked my campaign team about the viaducts, and it is still open season on what is actually happening with the viaducts. People are still unsure. There's so much uncertainty. So we have to resolve this once and for all. The people of Vancouver, the people of Chinatown, and Wall Street need to know what's really going to happen with the viaducts. And Colleen's right. This is about money and the value of the land underneath the viaducts. And we need to resolve that issue once and for all. Can we come down? Are they coming down? Are they staying up? But I also want to talk about the character of Chinatown. And there's been a discussion that's come to me about this becoming a UNESCO heritage site. Be careful what you wish for, because it can be a blessing and it can be a curse. It's open to more discussion.
Every neighborhood needs good, family-friendly, and convenient public amenities and infrastructure, and this neighborhood is no different. Chinatown, it's difficult to get into Chinatown. You use Main Street. There's issues on Back Street around Pacific that have to be sorted out. But building housing is a very good thing. Building housing near where the viaducts are, around the viaducts, it's a good thing. It's a good, convenient place for people to live, and it provides, it makes the city better. What I will do is talk to the community, listen to the concerns, make sure that there's adequate park space in the area, but there's got to be a win-win here for everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. I think that the plan we have is a good start. What I see, when I think about Chinatown, is folks traveling down Main Street, passing through a brand new gate to Chinatown that announces an entrance to a vibrant area, which has businesses and restaurants that people from all around the world want to visit. And we're a ways away from that, we know that, but the plan is that has been built through community consultation at this point, has a good overall vision. I disagree, I do think that it is important to go for a UNESCO heritage designation if it works for the community, which it does, I think, have a great opportunity to do this. I guess the key thing though is that we need a plan that we can agree on because that brings together three groups. Of course, the historic Chinatown roots that are so important in this community, but also addressing other past discriminations against Indigenous people and the Black Africans historic, who were also displaced when the viaducts were built. The thing about the viaducts is they're full of asbestos, and if there's an earthquake, they will crush the skyscraper. So we need to take those down. But because there has been agreement among the community in terms of what should be done, the funding from the federal and provincial levels has been reliant upon taking down the viaducts. But now that we have this new step that the council voted through, now we can get on to getting money we need to take those viaducts down, to free up the land that will go towards enhancing Chinatown, whether it's parks, whether it's new business opportunities, or housing for seniors, which is an absolute key to what has to happen here. So I think it's the plan is a big step forward, but we now need to fill in all the details, of course, with consulting with the community as we've done all the way through.
Great, thank you. Ken?
Thank you. So as Mayor of Vancouver with an ABC majority on council, make no mistake about it, we will hold developers and the city of Vancouver accountable for any commitments that they made. And if it's not possible, we will work with the community, the Falls Creek community, and all the residents and businesses that ask them what actually makes sense going forward. We're going to engage the community. And we've already made this commitment on public record saying that I'm Mayor of Vancouver, one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to put an office in Chinatown so we understand what the community wants and needs. And we're going to be engaged in the solutions that they present to either our problems or our opportunities.
Sorry, I'm just going to ask you one follow-up question because I didn't understand something you said, and then I'm going to ask everyone afterwards. Pauline was very clear about saying she would cancel the existing plan and start over with a different process. Would you do that? Does there need to be any kind of adjustment to what happens so far? So I'll ask you that in a minute. But you said we will hold the development industry and city accountable for commitments they made. What does that mean? Like, what are you talking about? I'm genuinely lost.
Yeah,
so I think you're referring to something that
so the developer promised the area a large park, and they have to fulfill their commitments. We will actually go to the developer and say, look, what's up? And that's the thing. Like,
and I'm sure Terry Healy will tell you.
Yeah. Here's the thing. When you make commitments to the city and the residents, and they plan their lives accordingly, they start up a business, or they buy a home in the area, and they're sold a bill of goods, you have to hold people or corporations accountable for that. And if it's no longer viable for whatever reason, we have to figure out what's the next best option, and you ask the residents what.
I understand. Okay. So, it's very clear in saying, scrap the plan, start, I don't want to put words in your mouth, scrap the liberal plan. Scrap the plan and start over again with a better process. So I need to know from, and I'm going to give you a chance to talk again, but I need to know from each one of you a really clear yes or no. Would you scrap the plan or keep it? And if you're keeping it, is there something you think needs to be done, to sort of in the steps going forward to make it better? Okay, so I'm going to start with Brad here. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be very honest, I don't know. And I don't know because this plan, as I say, started in 1990, is that correct?
The ODP.
It was for 1990.
But that's
I got Okay, so just give me some advice, thank you. We have a very good relationship, I respect all you immensely.
You're used
So,
to your
it's
time.
good. Okay, so, look, so this came in 1990. So I can't say that I'm going to scrap the plan, because simply walking out and telling the people that I'm going to scrap the plan and start again, it will be their grandchildren who are likely going to inherit whatever comes when this is resolved. So I can't say I'm going to scrap the plan. There are great flaws with it, but there's flaws with it seems to be with every plan, the Vancouver plan, the Broadway plan, the Wall Street plan. It's like every plan that comes out, there's got holes in it, and we need to have some leadership that makes these things concrete and decisive.
Thank you. I am now banning the word leadership, okay? We all want to be leaders, we get that, and we would like to have more specifics. So, okay, Mark. Cancel the plan and start over, don't cancel it, but do some tweaks, fix things.
Well, I don't think I would cancel the plan. And I noticed that Colleen Hardwick would probably like to cancel every plan. So we got to consider that.
There's no question.
Yeah, no, I think we'd like to cancel them all, actually.
They properly executed.
That was just for fun. I said it yes, because I think it's important that we have the park space that we need and the infrastructure.
Sorry, a yes to cancel it, or a yes to keeping it? Yeah.
To keep it. As long as we know that we're gonna have the right park space, that we have the right infrastructure and right amenities, then I think it's a good thing. And we keep on stalling the housing that's coming to Vancouver. We keep on finding ways to say no to things, and we gotta get moving on things.
Okay.
Yeah, this goes to the whole heart of the issue. I think Vancouverites and people across BC, they're tired of politicians telling them what to do. Would I cancel the plan? No, what I would actually do is I would listen to the residents and figure out what the plan is all about, what works well in the plan, what doesn't work well in the plan. Okay, I've yet to see a plan anywhere, be it in health or business or whatever, that is 100% perfect. And so to just accept the whole thing or cancel the thing, probably the wrong answer. I'd rather have the community give us their ideas on what is the best parts of it, and we'll make those happen.
Definitely keep the plan, but I mean, you can't just approve the plans, you have to fight for them, right? You have to not just say, well, maybe I'll do this, you have to fight for them, because the money that the senior levels of government provide will go elsewhere if you don't fight for it. And that's exactly what I've been doing for the city for 4 years. And we've had more federal provincial investment here than any time in the city's history. So I will continue, I approve this plan, I will keep moving forward, and we'll get the investment we need to make it happen.
Okay.
All right.
What would you see as a better process?
Okay.
Where do you want to cancel?
First of all, I just have to clarify a point, because people don't seem to understand the difference between the North Wall Street plan, which was approved in 1990, and the Northeast Wall Street plan, which was really created by the last Division Council. So it's important to differentiate between those two. The point that I'm trying to make is that the North Wall Street plan and the commitments that it made to housing and park space and mobility and all of the things that come together to build a proper community plan have not been met. And instead, they brought in another plan, the Northeast Wall Street plan, that does not meet the commitments that were already made by the earlier plan, and then sets aside again some, what I consider predatory steps towards the takedown of the viaducts for the purpose of building more housing density on that land, putting us in further imbalance between the balance between housing, mobility, community amenities, commercial, and green space. Livability is about good planning, and it's about the balance between those elements, and not just slamming something through, and something that disregards the input from the residents. And I find it laughable in some ways that we say that there has been any meaningful consultation about this, because the public consultation around this has been substandard at best. Anybody in this community feel that they've actually been heard in the way that this plan has been put together? I'm a planner. I grew up around planning. There's good planning and there's bad planning. And promoting growth, for the sake of promoting growth, is about profit. and managing the growth process and proper planning is about livability. Thanks.
Okay, our last question, and then we have some really interesting questions from the audience that I'm gonna try and whip through, so I'm gonna try a really tight time limit, so think of your like us as slowing answers. But here's the last question. So Vancouver City Council consistently claims to value Vancouver's small heritage districts, even as they have watched businesses fail for many of the reasons already discussed today. What are your ideas for supporting the struggling businesses that have managed to survive in Chinatown and Gastown? And I'm going to start with Fred.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a really important question. 4 years ago, I made a commitment that if I was mayor, I would absolutely engage with the entire community of Chinatown to make sure that Chinatown was a thriving part of Vancouver. But it's the heart of Vancouver as it used to be 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Certainly when I came to Vancouver in 1997, with my family, we'd buy dim sum and visit the restaurants there. I have been with my family in Chinatown in years, and that's because it's not safe. It's not a place where I want to bring my family right now. But if I'm the mayor, my promise to you is that we will absolutely rid the streets of the crime and the criminals and the people who are making the streets unsafe, the people who make everyone feel unsafe. I'm not going to say what it is. You know what I know what this is, right? We need to have. It's that kind of response that's going to get rid of the crime, though, by having somebody that understands how to tackle these issues. I have great respect for the people on this bench, but we haven't seen anybody tackle the issues when they have the budget. The mayor should be unassailable. He's had 4 years to deal with this, and an enormous budget to deal with this, and yet it's got worse. But not just worse, but so much worse. Where we want to bring in affordable housing, we also have to bring in affordable retail. We have to make sure that businesses are not chased out because they can't afford the rent, the rates, and there are no customers for them. We have to make sure that Chinatown becomes a tourist hub once again. Let's get the cruise ship passengers coming back the way they used to 10, 15 years ago, but the way that they're not anymore. I promise you, and I mean this sincerely, it's not an empty promise, I will rid the streets of the crime around downtown, the downtown side, the tent encampments by Christmas. Chinatown will be thriving once again this time next year.
Thank you. We need to start with regular dialogue. There used to be, until 2019, when the pandemic came along, there was a mayor's dinner with all the stakeholders in Chinatown, where the mayor got to hear firsthand the concerns of people. And that hasn't happened since 2019, understandably because of the pandemic, but it could happen in the last year. That's something that I'll reinstate when I become the mayor. The other thing that I've been talking a lot about is creating a commissioner of the nighttime economy and culture, whose responsibility will be to get our nighttime economy and culture working properly in our city. There's a lot of other much larger cities in the world that have this kind of person. They call it a nightmare, a night mayor, not a nightmare. And this person will be part promoter, part peacemaker, and part negotiator, and will be accountable to all the stakeholders in downtown economy and culture. And their biggest focus will be around Granville Street, around Gastown, and around Chinatown. They'll be looking for opportunities, and because this person would be elected by folks, this person will be held accountable. I know that the mayor put forward has created a night office, but that's kind of weak. We need this to be a much bigger deal, and that person can work with folks around things like getting the streets cleaner, better lighting, any kind of things that people are talking about, and just to get that stuff done and expedited. And this person will be reporting to council.
Thank you.
COVID-19 has been so hard on everybody, and we all point to the healthcare workers on the front lines and we think of them as heroes, but I also think of small business owners as heroes. The folks that kept their businesses open when we had wild changes in the economy, where your client base changed, you had to close down. And council reacted well, opening 800 patios to make sure the businesses could, the restaurants could continue to feed people and thrive. That's something that we've now made permanent. That happened very, very quickly. And took all the fees out to make sure that businesses were actually hurt. We did a shift on taxes from lowering the commercial property taxes and then moving that over to residential property taxes. And we have done what we can do as much as we can to help, but we know there's a lot more that needs to be done. I've been filled with hope though. I did a tour about 2 weeks ago where I went to many legacy businesses and saw that new younger family members are now starting to take over these businesses, which is fantastic. Whether it's my favorite fish store where I go buy my fish, or whether it's where I buy my barbecue pork, or a dumpling, it was a dumpling store I've been to. These businesses are keeping the tradition of the past, but also modernizing to help them thrive. And I'm so proud that these multi-generational businesses are continuing to prosper in very difficult times. But when Ken says he's going to cut services, when he says he's going to cut up to $330 million from city services, I believe him, and it worries me. I really worry that the city needs to invest now to recover from COVID, to help folks, especially in these areas where we've had, a collapse of the social safety net. But cuts aren't going to do it. And we have to work with senior levels of government. So when Ken Sim says he would stop EDPRB's housing project, that would get folks off the street, when his councilors go against it.
Okay, and I was going to cut you off because it's not a solution to attack your competitor's solution. But please have it not to, because I know Ken's next and he can stop. Yes. And also, what would you do this?
I'll spend 13 seconds on defending myself here. So first of all, I don't know where you're getting that number from. I've never said it. Maybe you're referring to $300 million we're going to save in for taxpayers and stop your road tax. So this is a two-part answer. First of all, we can do whatever we want. We can support businesses, but if we don't get a handle on public safety, where people do not want to come to Chinatown, it's all going to be for naught. About public safety, and it's not just about police. We have to get to the root cause of these issues. So it's going to be a long journey. Now, what I do want to celebrate is there are a lot of great ideas that actually come from the community through our conversations, and I want to share them with you. So, one, some kind of tax relief for heritage businesses or businesses in heritage buildings in Chinatown. That's something that we can get around. Two, signage. Celebrating Chinatown's unique history with lit neon signs, or different signs with some Chinese lettering in them. If businesses are willing to step up and do that, we can actually go and give the companies rebates for the amount of money that they invested in their signs. And it's great because it promotes local culture. It actually helps with safety because they're lit signs. And it actually makes the region more local. By the way, that came from Lewis Park at Hawaii, not from us. The third thing is parking. And look, this goes back and sit here to me back in the 70s. My dad used to drive us all around Chinatown, and if you had to pay for parking, we'd circle the block for 30 minutes and we'd go back home.
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, 20 more seconds.
So another great idea that came from the community is changing the angle of parking. So instead of parallel parking, you park at an angle, and then you give the first hour of parking free. That way you have consumers that will go in and out. They don't have to for 3 or 4 hours. If they want to stay longer than a recommended to stay in Chinatown, then they actually pay for it. So like I said, what we're going to do at ABC Vancouver, when we're in office, we are engaging all the residents for their solutions because the residents actually come up with the best ones.
Thank you.
So Chinatown has survived before. Does anybody remember when they were gonna put a freeway through that would have knocked out all of Chinatown and Gastown all the way along? Yeah, there's some people that remember, that was an existential crisis for Chinatown. It was gonna be knocked and flat and gone. And people like my father and his cohort, the original team, fought for Chinatown to bring it back. So we've survived before, and we can survive again. The number one thing, of course, is to stop the random street attacks, the unprecedented theft and violence. I think we've covered that like crazy. But if the question is, what are our ideas for struggling businesses? Well, we need to be able to get the customers to the businesses in the first place. And we all know that we've heard from all of the tourism sites that don't even bother going to Chinatown anymore. You'll have to go through the ground zero to get there. So tourism is an incredibly important part of the business in Chinatown. So what do we need to do about that? I had this idea, actually, I ran through my friend David Wong over there, the idea of yellow brick road. We got a yellow brick road going from the cruise ship terminals, up Water Street, all the way to Chinatown, that people can follow to bring people here and really open it up. That's an imaginative thing that people can get behind. And I'd rather spend money on things like the design hub and the creativity hub that was first put forward by my late friends Joe Y and Big Tom. There was a lot of thought put into what we can do to really make Chinatown convenient to draw people here. And that's really what we have to do. It's ultimately about getting people here so that they can get through the lines of what they have to go through on Water Street, with the potholes there, of course, and then up through Hastings Street if they're coming into Chinatown. So if we can make it possible for people to get here in the first place, we'll be able to enjoy Chinatown together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. From what I think are pretty interesting audience questions. I'm just going to ask really rapidly, and again, community asked me to ask this, and Ken's already answered it, so you don't have to answer. And very quickly, would you support some kind of subsidy or tax relief for particular businesses that are essential to Chinatown identity, which I know is something that San Francisco, for example, does. So yes or no, would you? I'll just start here and go down below.
Yes, absolutely. Targeted relief, like we've done with the patio program, that's what we addressing services is what we do, but we don't have.
Mark.
Yes, targeted relief.
Colleen?
Yes, and please remind to tell that to the merchants on Broadway as well that are dealing with that cover. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. It's targeted relief and see all the relief we can get, even if it's to be successful as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Those are the 4 main questions. Now we can move to 3 audience questions that I think are the most relevant. I'm not going to get into how the city should improve healthcare for people in Chinatown because I think that's really beyond their capacity. But first, and can we keep the answers super short because it is currently 11:44. So I guess I can allow like a minute each. Will that work time-wise? I think so, right? Yeah. So with St. Paul's coming, being built, huge numbers of doctors, patients, nurses, cleaning workers, and all the rest, who are going to be arriving here looking for hotel rooms, places to live, and so on. My son used to live in Strathmore in a shared house with a wreck. I know that place is going to get redeveloped for housing as this kind of, or denser housing as this pressure comes here. So how would you protect Chinatown's character and culture, given that pressure that we know is coming from the hospital when it opens? And I think because Mark didn't get to answer a question first, at any of the 4, I'm going to let you answer first for the next 3. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I feel that, sorry.
How protect given the pressure?
Well, I think that one of the ways to bring life to Chinatown is for more people to be living near Chinatown. So I think this is an opportunity, not a threat. I think that if we can get more people shopping in Chinatown, it's fantastic. So I'm not sure about the question.
Okay. Colleen?
There's actually some pretty good opportunities for densification adjacent to the St. Paul site. In particular, housing that can be designed for workers, hospital workers and otherwise. So I think that there's some good opportunities again with a livable balance in terms of the housing typology and the other components of livability that I mentioned earlier.
Okay,
No, protecting Chinatown is a selling feature. Right? Like, that's what makes Vancouver amazing, and surrounding communities as well, like Union Street, Strathcona. We should be protecting our heritage neighborhoods, and there is a lot of opportunity throughout the city, including all along the subway that's being built and that's currently built, to access Chinatown and Strathcona and the surrounding communities. So we don't have to look at it as one small area and we're going to build a lot of housing here. We have to look at it as a region.
Yeah. Chinatown is a historic cultural landmark. I think Corey said that 4 years ago I talked about preserving it, saving it, enhancing it. That doesn't change. I would make sure that we make sure this is a respected cultural heritage landmark that the global community recognizes, that we bring the tourists here, and it's about protecting it. So the buildings can be protected. We don't need to pull things down, and if there's more density, we would like to see we can create more density around St. Paul's Hospital, as I mentioned earlier, the workforce, housing, policing, teachers, etc. We would like to protect it.
The best way to protect Chinatown going forward, and I believe that the community, because most of the community is UNESCO heritage site designation. This would protect this neighborhood, enhance it, bring many more tourists. But I agree with Mark, is that the hospital, there's going to be 30,000 people working at that hospital. And this is a tremendous business opportunity for merchants in Chinatown. We talk about cruise ships and people wandering through Chinatown. 30,000 workers in a hospital is an enormous economic opportunity. But you're right, we have to make sure we dig the roots of Chinatown deeper. We protect what's there and enhance it. And I do think, again, I see lots of very bright future for Chinatown, but we can't really get it off the map. We have to absolutely protect it, and I think UNESCO heritage site designation would do that.
Thank you. Thank you for this. Some of you may have, and some of you may think that she's asking the same question twice, but I'm going to do it anyway. How do you, and this is from the audience, how do you see Chinatown fitting into the Vancouver plan March 1st? Go ahead. How do you see Chinatown fitting into the Vancouver plan? Like, as you, I believe the question is, as you understand the Vancouver plan, what are the potential impacts of that on Chinatown?
Well, you mean to say the road that we're talking about?
Well, the whole reimagining of the, the Vancouver plan.
Well,
Colleen can explain it.
the answer is the same. If we have a growing city, if we have more people living near Chinatown, if we have the right kind of housing, it's going to be helpful for Chinatown. And the only big problem with the Vancouver plan, well, there's a number of problems, but the biggest problem with the Vancouver plan is it's a plan to make a whole bunch more plans, and we need action on a lot of these things.
Okay, Kevin.
Right, so the Vancouver plan will become an official community plan in 2 years. Every elected of the council that will work to do that. And that's so important because we've never actually had a city plan for Vancouver ever in their history. So this will give certainty, and what's very, very important is that Chinatown is protected within that plan. And that's what is coming. If I'm elected mayor, is that we will move forward with an official community plan for the city of Vancouver, the Vancouver plan. Of course, we have 2 more years of input to do that, and then we'll be like every other, finally, we'll be like every other municipality in British Columbia, and have a plan for our city for uncertainty, which is sorely lacking under this mishmash of plans we have all put together. So entrenching a Chinatown plan in the Vancouver plan is absolutely key to make sure that this area thrives and grows for a very, very long time.
Colleen.
If elected, and with my team majority, we will rescind the Vancouver plan. Just be clear right off the top. It's upside down and backwards. The city has a legacy of community planning, and I advocated going back to 2005 for a reboot of the city plan process, which effectively would have knit together the tapestry of neighborhood plans across the city that recognizes the nuance of neighborhoods. And I campaigned on it in 2018, and we brought in the city plan as an exercise. It was rebranded the Vancouver plan by staff and turned upside down and backwards. So instead of a plan that recognizes the neighborhoods like Chinatown, it's this top-down, deterministic, one-size-fits-all model. And it should be sent back to the drawing board and do a proper job of community planning. Now, I went out recognizing this, and I met with 50 neighborhoods across the city, and I asked them the question: if you need to add 500 to 1,000 new dwelling units in your neighborhood over the next decade plus to accommodate population growth, what's that look like? And that's what proper planning is about, not just imposing things, but listening to the people and reflecting the nuance of neighborhoods in China, including Chinatown. Thank you.
I absolutely agree. The Vancouver plan is completely flawed, and the fact that Chinatown is not included, it shows the respect that the city actually gives Chinatown residents. We absolutely need a plan for Vancouver that is, and I think we almost use the same words. I was talking about mosaic of neighborhoods. We need a mosaic of neighborhoods where everything's weaved into one like a blanket, where everyone knows that you are part of Vancouver, part of the city, and that you matter. So that's going to be critical for us. But we also need a mayor who says the things that he needs and means what he says. So when we hear this a moment ago in terms of Vancouver being Chinatown having free parking, I want to know that all 3 ABC councillors voted against free parking. So it's really important to recognize the people who are people in their work, not just standing up there saying anything against that.
Okay, that's it, so we can answer what your ABC colleagues have done.
So let's be very clear. Chinatown is, a vibrant Chinatown is in our national strategic interests. It is our history. We wouldn't have, Vancouver and BC would not be part of Canada right now if it wasn't for the Chinese community going to the railway, and we should be celebrating that. So to answer your question, I will support any plan that makes sure that Vancouver or Chinatown is vibrant and survives the next 100 years on this planet.
Thank you. It might seem frivolous, but I think it's really appropriate given we've all been sitting here for 2 hours and probably really need a bathroom break. So here's the last question from the audience. How would you address the lack of public washrooms in Chinatown that continually has been requested by senior groups and the living community? Mark?
I would start by saying, again, that I don't think that's a frivolous question, and we do need more washrooms in Chinatown. But I also noticed that some washrooms are actually closed, like we go to the mall over there. So we definitely need more washrooms in Chinatown, because if you don't have washrooms, people go elsewhere. Thank you.
Thanks, and yeah, you're right, frivolous was the wrong word, and somewhat less in scope than Vancouver. Ken, I think. Oh, man.
They were having problems. This is a matter of human decency. Of course, we need restrooms for residents in Chinatown and downtown side. It's just a basic necessity, and I 100% support it. On top of that, we can act on it super fast. There are a lot of solutions, temporary solutions that we can enact right away as we look to longer term solutions that are more permanent.
Thank you.
It's a lack of leadership. So I actually, I was doing a walk around just a few days ago and thought we had to have more washrooms in Vancouver. It's an absurdity that, as my friend says, is that people don't go somewhere else and being behind walls. And the smell of Granville Street is just disgusting because there are not enough washrooms. Absolutely support it. There are great models in Europe. I remember when these self-cleaning washrooms came into London probably 40 years ago, so we desperately need them. Full support it. It's a great question.
Yes, it was over a month ago that the Chinatown Festival was on down here, and my daughter came down with my two grandbabies, little girl who's 3.5, and little grandson who just turned 1. And we wanted to go down to the Jade Dynasty to go for dim sum for the first time. And trying to get there, pushing the stroller along, not only were there guys passed out in the street with needles, the feces and the smell was just incredible. So I can't imagine anybody standing up there and saying we don't need toilets and we don't need this to clean up the streets. It just, again, just the image for me of going through that with my grandchildren, that was not what I wanted them to think about when they think about Chinatown. So yeah, I know, obviously, but I don't think that it's for residents. I think it's really for tourists and other people that are here that need them. But do we need them? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Great, well, yes, this is a very important issue, and it is all about dignity, I agree. And over the last 4 years, we've done a pile of investment. You can go right down by Open River Park. We have the Outdoor Salad Center there, which is a fully funded City of Vancouver project. It has a huge commercial kitchen, it has 7 showers, it has laundry facilities, it's an event hub facility, all funded and paid for by the City of Vancouver. And that is for folks that need basic, decent services. During COVID, we secured federal money to put in many temporary public washrooms around the downtown east side.
Public washrooms.
Including larger trailer sites that are so important. The Van, which is the City of Vancouver's plan for washrooms, is
You said nothing. Nothing. People had to have a baby. There was no private place for a child. That's a human rights atrocity. That's a crime against humanity. Why did you hold that? That Washington's been there forever, and Victory Square has the same, and it too has what? You, sir, hid under horribly in the toolbox, and you did nothing more. People came to me. I was downtown. People had no water, sir. A woman came up to me covered with lice. She said, "You know where a woman could take a shower?" There was no public washing. This should be the top issue. People had nothing. They had bugs out. I talked to so many people. People had no water. No water. No water. You could have stood up, already died. You know dehydration is an issue. And you, sir, you did nothing. You, sister, a frivolous question. How dare you? And how dare you dismiss? How dare you dismiss health beyond their control? Health is community issue. It should be number one, not frivolous. You are right.
Don't you apologize for him? He's speaking. No, I'm apologizing for my word, but he's criticizing.
Yeah.
Didn't even listen.
Yeah, this is an important issue. We need to-
Yes, okay, and I said that, thank you. Okay.
Let's keep going.
Thank you. So this is an incredibly important issue, as we've all heard and we all know. We had a terribly tragic heat dome that came through and killed many people across the province, including right here in the city of Vancouver. And the investments that are needed in infrastructure and emergency service are critical. And so that's why working with senior levels of government has been so important through COVID, bringing in emergency washrooms, bringing in emergency services, But we were definitely afraid at the beginning of COVID that COVID would go through and wipe out the entire downtown east side because people had immune deficiencies. So, like, when I say that this is it's super important and I'm incredibly proud of how this neighborhood has responded to COVID, I mean it. Like, we have done a ton, but not enough, because we've been through one of the toughest times ever in the history of the city. So going forward, there is a plan to bring in 30 new washrooms into Vancouver. That's through the park board, mostly through parks. But also I want to get new washrooms in the new transit facilities that are being built across the city, along the Broadway line and in many other parts of the city. So there has been a lack of attention to this, absolutely. Temporary solutions have been put in place, not enough, and you can tell from the emotion and the pain that you're hearing here today. But the only way we're going to move forward is investing in services, and that's what I'll do when reelected.
So, that gentleman was talking about washrooms having been closed and water turned off during COVID. Do you feel that's a fair characterization of what happened? Or what do you have to say to it?
Can't hear you.
Oh, do you feel that's a fair characterization of what happened? What do you have to say to the point that he was making?
In some cases, due to the public health measures, there were facilities closed. For example, in SROs, people in SROs are no longer allowed to have guests. So this pushed hundreds and hundreds of people out of the street. The seriousness of COVID and how we approached it had a massive impact, especially in this part of town, especially in the downtown east side. And I know it's traumatic to think through it, but this has been affecting this community for 2.5 years. It has been a huge struggle to make sure that we get the services, emergency services that we're still providing because we're still in COVID. So again, I thank everybody, the stores that open their doors to provide washroom services to people, folks being patient as we try to get folks into housing that are living on the street right now. But brighter days are coming, and we need the investments, and we have a plan for the investments to open up, to learn the lessons that we experienced through COVID, to make sure that we get more facilities in busy areas that need them the most. And there is already a plan. If you talk to park board commissioners, there's a fantastic plan to bring in 30 new washrooms as well in transit areas.
Okay, thank you. That was quite a roller coaster ride the last 2 hours. I really appreciate how honestly you all answered the questions and made an effort not to blame other levels of government or each other too much. I really appreciated the very honest, direct, vivid answers. The audience was fantastic. I hope you had an interesting time. Week and a half to plan this and develop it, and it was stressful for them because I was constantly sending back messages saying, no, you can't do that. And they brought so much heart into it, and they care so much about this community, and they deserve applause.